I'm telling you, 3 weeks ago, a whole damn crowd of these polo shirt warriors showed up right at my fence line, shouting for me to swing my gate open for their HOA inspection, or whatever nonsense they were selling that day. I just sat back in my old lawn chair, cracked a cold beer, and gave them a flat-out 7.5 on my little dry erase scorecard for terrible synchronization. They looked like confused flamingos trying to start a cult, honestly. They figured I was just some stubborn, dusty old ranch guy. But they had absolutely zero idea I was sitting there with 4K cameras running, every single receipt organized, and a disgruntled whistleblower ready to torch their entire little development to the ground. When the biggest, loudest one finally demanded to know what my answer was, I only had 3 words for him. The only words that ever mattered out here. My land, my rules. To truly understand how we got to that ridiculous circus, you have to appreciate 2 things, the land and my grandfather. Folks around here, just east of the city limits, they'll tell you that Texas soil remembers things. It remembers the boots, the storms, the hooves, and especially the trouble. And if you stay long enough, it remembers you, too. I've lived on this 15-acre patch, which we call Cedar Creek Ranch, for most of my life. I left a couple of times, sure, life drags you off like it does everyone. But like a river that only knows one course, I always ended up flowing right back here, and the land was always waiting. The house itself, a squat, stubborn structure older than most of the divorces in this county, leans a little to the west, like it's just taking a long, slow rest. My grandfather, Old Man Jeremiah, built the first version of this place with his own 2 hands, teaching me that a man wasn't worth much unless he left something behind that could stand up to a good, nasty wind. And out here, the winds don't send invitations, they just arrive. He used to tell me, "Boy, you don't just own land, you take care of it so it'll take care of you." I believed him then, and I believe him even more now, because this land, this workshop that perpetually smells of cedar and diesel, this gravel road, this fence line, it did take care of me. The driveway alone is almost half a mile long, still the same rough, honest gravel my grandfather laid down back in 1968 with a rented grader and a mule that hated mornings with a passion. It runs up from the county road, curls around a stand of ancient pecan trees, and ends at a heavy iron gate with my last name, Hanson, welded right across the middle. It's the kind of gate that says, without having to raise its voice, "Turn around unless you were explicitly invited." Most folks around here respect that, because privacy is a rare, precious commodity these days, same as quiet. On my land, quiet didn't just visit, quiet lived here. Mornings started slow, coffee on the porch, my 2 hounds at my feet, the sun rising soft and orange. That's a peace you don't measure in minutes. You measure it in the depth of your breath, and for a long, good time, nobody dared to break it. I had enough distance between me and the next living soul that I could genuinely drink coffee in my underwear out on the porch and not worry one damn bit about anyone calling the sheriff. That's a kind of personal freedom they don't sell in those prefab subdivisions. And for years, nobody bothered me. The mail came when it came, the dogs barked when they felt like it, and the only rules that truly mattered were the ones written into the dirt. Then Riverbend Estates showed up. It started innocently enough, just survey flags, little orange and pink markers that sprouted across the road like some kind of invasive weed. Then came the trucks, the concrete, the framing crews. Within a year, there it was, a full-blown, cookie-cutter HOA development, popping up practically overnight, all lined up behind a big, pretentious white stucco wall and a decorative sign with swoopy cursive letters that promised a community of trust. Out here, we called that decoration for people who don't trust their own judgment. Running that little paper kingdom was their president, Karen Sterling. You've seen her type. Haircut sharp enough to be weaponized, clothes pressed flatter than a week-old pancake, and a voice that could somehow turn the word community into a direct, personal threat. To me, she just looked like someone who desperately believed rules were holy, as long as she personally wrote every single one of them. At first, I mostly ignored them. They stayed on their side, I stayed on mine. They could fuss over lawn heights and fence colors all day long. My world was busted knuckles, a gate, and the smell of fresh cedar. But there was one massive, unavoidable problem: geography. The back half of their entire community ran straight into rough, difficult, uneven country. There was no easy, logical, or cheap way in for big construction trucks, emergency vehicles, or any of the heavy toys a shiny new HOA likes to parade around. The only reasonable access point, the only one that saved them miles of road paving, was my southern gate, the one that opened onto my private gravel road. The road my grandfather carved into this land with sweat and cuss words. They looked at that road and saw convenience. I looked at it and saw 70 years of my family's backbone. They wanted it, and I told them point blank, flat out no. But with people like Karen Sterling, no isn't an answer. It's a challenge. And that's when the trouble really started to boil over. They didn't waste any time. 3 days after their ribbon-cutting ceremony, I spotted movement at my gate. 2 men in reflective vests and one in a crisp navy blue polo. The clipboard guy they sent to do the talking, standing there like they expected me to sign their permission slip for my own life. I walked down slow, deliberately wiping thick, black grease off my hands with a rag I'd been using since dawn. The dogs followed behind me like silent, watchful deputies. Clipboard guy stepped forward with a fake smile. "Good morning, sir. We're with Clearwater Ridge Community Logistics. We'd like to request temporary access through your gate for a few days. Construction equipment, deliveries. It'll save us a lot of trouble." "This gate?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. "Yes, sir," he nodded. "Concrete trucks come Friday. Your road's the only direct access." I folded my rag neatly, because silence makes nervous men talk. "This road isn't public," I stated simply. "It's on my deed. It's not on your plans. You know that." His smile cracked, just a hairline fracture. "We can make it worth your while," he said, suddenly dropping the friendly neighbor act. "The HOA is prepared to compensate generously." I shook my head. "Slow, clear, final. I've already told your president I'm not interested," I said. "This isn't a logistics problem. It's a boundaries problem." Before he could start his memorized HOA script, I cut him off. Not angry, just done. My land, my rules. The air changed right then. That deep, quiet shift when somebody realizes the answer isn't changing. "You boys are standing on private property without permission," I said. "That's trespassing. This conversation is over." I pulled out my phone and hit the sheriff's non-emergency line. They left before Deputy Miller even arrived. The next morning, the war started in earnest. I found HOA pamphlets wedged in my gate hinges and scattered across the gravel. Bold red headlines screamed, "Blocking community infrastructure. Endangering public safety." I didn't get mad. I just added another heavy-duty lock, welded a second bracket onto the post, and mounted a new camera. If they wanted a fight, they were about to learn they picked the wrong man on the wrong damn day. The kind of silence that settled over Cedar Creek Ranch wasn't peaceful after that. It was the kind of quiet that watches you from the tree line, waiting for the next move. And I knew exactly what they'd do next. People like Karen don't hear no. They hear try harder. I spent 2 full days wiring every camera, adding thermal sensors and cloud backups. Not because I was paranoid, but because I'd lived long enough to know trouble rarely announces itself politely twice. Right on schedule, trouble arrived. At 2:31 a.m., my phone buzzed, a silent alert for motion along the east fence. I slipped on my boots and walked out, checking the feed. 2 figures in black, moving along the fence line. One carried a toolkit. They were here to break something. They reached the gate. One pulled out a handheld grinder, flipped it on, and pressed it to the lock. Sparks shot out like angry fireflies. Then the second guy handed him a folded piece of paper, a clearly forged court order, and I saw the badge on his vest, Riverbend Enforcement Officer. A position that existed only in Karen Sterling's head. I didn't yell. I didn't rush in. I just filmed the whole damn thing from behind the tractor shed. Sometimes, the smartest move is letting people record their own guilt in 1080p. Just moments later, headlights crested the far ridge, Deputy Miller and another patrol unit. The moment the deputies saw sparks flying, they hit the loudspeaker. "Hands up. Step away from the property." Both men were cuffed on the ground in seconds. And that's when Grinder Boy cracked. Wait. "This is a misunderstanding," he yelled, his face mashed into the gravel. "Karen said it was authorized. She said we had immunity. She promised she'd handle the paperwork." His partner groaned. "Dude, stop talking." Miller just tapped the mic on his vest. "Your confession is coming through loud and clear. Keep talking." "Only when the HOA gets creative." I shrugged. Miller confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't just trespassing. Fake documents, impersonating officials, attempted forced entry. These boys were in deep, and Karen Sterling was in deeper. I handed Miller the footage, night vision, audio, and a nice close-up of their little cosplay badges. By 4 p.m., the HOA released a public statement, a shiny PDF. The Riverbend Homeowners Association distances itself from the unlawful actions of an independent contractor. We are shocked and disappointed. Translation: we didn't think he'd get caught. But the war escalated. 2 mornings later, I stepped onto my porch and saw a whole crowd of them. The public theater had begun. They were clustered along my fence line, holding signs. Emergency access saves lives. I didn't argue. I set up my lawn chair, grabbed a cold beer, and held up my dry erase board again. 7.5. Your marching is offbeat. I called back. If you're going to protest, at least get in sync. Then the quiet one arrived, the actor. He walked straight up to the gate, started shouting accusations. You the landhog. The guy blocking ambulances. I stayed still. This is private property. Step back. He stepped closer, threw a dramatic, theatrical swipe at my shoulder. Not a punch, just a brush, and then dropped to the ground like I'd shot him. He clutched his face, screaming. He hit me. He assaulted me. Call the cops. Phones came up fast. People shouted. But all I did was tap the side of my cap, where the little red light of my GoPro was blinking slow and steady. Evidence speaks louder than panic. When Deputy Miller arrived, the actor was still on the ground, groaning dramatically. He assaulted me, the actor insisted. I want to press charges. I didn't say a word. Just unclipped the GoPro and handed it over. Miller reviewed the footage right there in the cruiser, replaying the theatrical flop in slow motion. He stepped out, holding the tablet. Sir, he said to the actor, you filed a false police report and attempted to defraud law enforcement. That's a crime. He clicked the cuffs shut and guided the screaming actor toward the cruiser. The people who had been chanting minutes ago were now folding up their signs, avoiding eye contact, shuffling back to their SUVs. They didn't sign up for the truth. 2 days later, the sound of trouble returned, the heavy crunch of gravel, followed by a deep diesel rumble. A bright yellow excavator and 3 men arrived, here to create a temporary access lane, spray painting an X directly on my fence post. This wasn't miscommunication. This was an attempt to take. I immediately called the sheriff and the county zoning office. The county inspector arrived, confirmed no permits, and ordered the entire crew off my property. Today, they'd shown their hand. They were trying to push through my boundary using equipment, hired crews, and a lie. That evening, I knew someone in that HOA clubhouse was rattled. Around 9 p.m., I heard footsteps approaching the gate, hesitant, uneven. The dogs didn't bark. A man stood there, pressed khakis, but shaking. Mr. Hanson, he whispered. My name is Tyler Manning. I'm the treasurer for Clearwater Ridge. I didn't come as a board member. I came as a homeowner. I can't be part of what's happening anymore. He looked over his shoulder twice. You're not the villain they're painting you as, he confessed. That excavator? Karen authorized it. She told the board it was pre-negotiated. I checked. None of that was true. He pulled out a thick envelope containing a USB drive and a stack of printed emails. I shouldn't have this, he whispered. If she finds out, she'll destroy me. He wiped sweat off his palms. As treasurer, I found discrepancies. Over $300,000 missing via accounts labeled security operations and resolution strategy. Large off-book transfers. And who authorized them? I asked. Karen, he said. Only Karen. He stepped closer, eyes terrified. She's going to blame me. She already drafted a statement saying I mismanaged the funds. She forged my initials on 2 of the transfers. When the break-in happened, she paid for it through an account she opened herself. His voice broke. She said the treasurer always goes down first. I can't risk prison for something I didn't do. He was coming to me out of survival, not heroism. I brought you everything, he said, pushing the envelope into my hand. You're not the only one she's hurt, he said quietly. You're just the only one who's not afraid of her. I watched him walk back toward the development. I stood there alone, envelope in hand, knowing one thing. Karen Sterling didn't just pick a fight. She picked the wrong enemy. I decided to put everything out in the open. I sent short emails to local reporters and neighbors. I will be hosting a community transparency open house this Saturday at Cedar Creek Ranch. Documentation provided. Bring whoever you want. Just sunlight. The morning of the event, I set up tents. I laid out maps, title transfers, tax receipts dating back half a century. I walked reporters along the fence line. Beside the deeds, I displayed laminated copies of the Clearwater Ridge buyer agreement with one line highlighted: Southern ingress and egress not guaranteed or implied. Folks read it and shook their heads. Tyler Manning even showed up, silently affirming the truth. The HOA's Facebook group went dead silent. The courtroom showdown arrived. The HOA lawyer presented staged aerial photos and hypothetical emergencies. Then my lawyer, Miss Davis, stood. Everything changed. She presented my deed, the 1967 plat map, the footage of the excavator, the video of the midnight break-in, and the receipt for the $500 payment for the staged assault. Karen went white. Then Miss Davis gestured toward the bench. Your Honor, the treasurer of the HOA board wishes to testify. Tyler Manning stood, swore in, and confessed everything. Karen had misrepresented the access, withheld votes, and secretly authorized the harassment payments. And what was the total amount of these unauthorized expenditures? Miss Davis pressed. Tyler looked at the number, $300,000. And when you questioned President Sterling, Miss Davis continued. What happened? Tyler's voice steadied. She told me she'd pin it on me. Said I'd be the fall guy. The treasurer always goes down first. Karen lurched to her feet, screaming. That's a lie. The judge slammed her gavel down. The verdict was swift. The HOA's petition for easement was denied with prejudice. Furthermore, the judge referred the matter to the district attorney's office for criminal review based on evidence of document tampering, staged incidents, and the alleged misappropriation of $300,000 of community funds. Karen looked like she'd been unplugged. The war was over. 2 days later, county auditors were at Riverbend. Word spread that the audit flagged multiple irregularities lining up perfectly with the USB Tyler gave me. The HOA board met that night. Residents filled every chair, screaming, Where's the money, Karen? The meeting ended with a motion to suspend her. She refused, of course. The real show came 3 days later. I was welding a brace on my eastern fence line when I heard sirens. Steady, official. They rolled right up to Karen Sterling's big, perfect HOA-approved home. Karen came out onto her porch, trying to smile and talk about procedural errors. The officers didn't argue. They stepped forward. They read the charges: fraud, conspiracy to commit trespass, misappropriation of community funds, authorization of staged incidents. When they placed the cuffs on her wrists, she gasped, utterly shocked that reality had finally shown up with paperwork. As they guided her toward the SUV, a breeze picked up, and behind her, the HOA's decorative entrance sign rattled in the wind. Riverbend Estates, a community of trust. The cold realization that the community she claimed to protect was watching her leave in handcuffs was the final, satisfying curtain drop. The HOA dissolved 2 weeks later. The state revoked its license. Tyler stopped by one evening, eyes tired but lighter. I never wanted it to go this far, he said. The HOA acted like you were the enemy, but you might have saved this whole place. Sometimes the person holding the line is the one keeping everyone from going over a cliff. I kept doing what my grandfather taught me. I poured fresh concrete along the eastern fence, set anchor-grade steel bollards, and mounted a hand-painted sign: no trespassing. Private land. HOA is not the law. The quiet returned. The kind of quiet that has no watchers, no intruders, just dogs barking at nothing. That night, as I walked to the gate to lock it, I ran a hand along the cool metal, not out of pride, but closure. Before heading back to the house, I said something into the dark, not loud, not for anyone, but for the land itself, my land. My rules. The wind didn't answer. It didn't need to. Some things are settled forever once you've said them out loud. So what about you? Have you ever had an HOA try to claim your property or fight dirty using illegal tactics? Did you have to use cameras and receipts to fight back? Or did they resort to outright fraud like Karen? Let me know in the comments if you think Tyler made the right choice by saving himself, and tell me your story about defending your own fence line. Hit that like and subscribe button, and remember, always know what's on your deed.